Hello, everyone. So, welcome in. We're gonna wait just a few minutes to let everybody come in. You can use the event chat to just text talk or the chat within the stage. Both are all right. We're gonna start in a few minutes. Yeah, I hope everyone got some water. It's always good to stay hydrated. Okay. So, welcome everyone to How to Break into the Industry. This month is about community managers. I am joined by our host and moderator, Masao Kobayashi. I will,
Hello.
um, yeah, hello. So, Tara is sick and could not be with us today. So, me and Masao, we're gonna maybe hop in for the few questions, but aside from that, we're gonna give all of the stage to Sydney and Victoria. So, I'll let Masao introduce them and have fun and enjoy the event.
Hello. Thank you for coming to the How to Break into the Games Industry Roundtable. And as Catherine said, this session is about community management. Um, so yeah, I normally I don't really have a lot to say in these because I'm just the moderator. But I actually worked in community management for 5 years, I think, from 2010 to 2014. So I have a thing or two to say about this one in particular. But we also have great guests this week um, who are prominent members of the I think the community management spheres. And yeah, so okay, let's please introduce yourself. Let's start with Sydney.
Okay, sure. Hello. Thank you for the introduction. It's great to be here and great to see everybody. Hello, everybody. Um, I've been keeping an eye on the thread on this side too. I love the emotes. But yeah, hi. I'm Sydney. I am the senior community manager at a studio called Norsefell here in Montreal, and we work on the game Tribes of Midgard. I'm not sure if anybody in the audience is familiar with the game, but yes, I work on that game, and I've been there for almost 4 years now, and this is actually my first job in games as CM. That's me. And I really love plants and tea.
Okay. Victoria, please introduce yourself.
Hello. Super happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I am the community director at Innersloth. We make a game called Among Us. Before that, or during that, I also kind of work on the side on some various community jobs. I was the community strategist for Unpacking. I am doing like some secret work on another little indie game. And then before all of that, I was the communications director at Kitfox Games, where I worked on things like Boyfriend Dungeon and Dwarf Fortress. I am very into talking about community, so I'm very excited to be here to talk about it. I do have like a personal website where I do write about community and marketing. And I also really like tea and plants. So hey, Sydney.
I am also a tea fan, so maybe we can talk about tea at some point. But today we're going to start with talking about community management. We have some topics that we have prepared ahead of time. So let's start with so both of you are in more senior roles. So now you are on the side of hiring people, I'm assuming. So what kind of educational backgrounds and hard skills or other industry experience are you looking for when you're looking for people who are new to the industry? Who wants to go first?
You can go first. I'm actually right in the middle of hiring people this week, so it all comes together. Um, yeah, for me, and I think it varies, and obviously, like if it's an indie studio, they often will need some very specific or wide skill sets. But for me, when it comes to hiring a community manager, one is honestly like I'm always looking for a learning attitude and one that is actionable. So I think a lot of people, right, like, you can say that you like games, and I'm glad that we all do. But I love it when I can see that someone has put in like the time and effort to kind of make something happen. So for a lot of the times for like programmers, you'll hear, oh, like do a game jam, make a game to prove that you can do the thing. And I think that's what I also look for in community management. Like I don't necessarily look for formal community management work, like you've worked in a studio or something, but like you've moderated a Discord, you have created your own guild or something, and you run it. Like that sort of thing is really interesting to me. Um, and then in terms of like technical skills, honestly, again, it also depends on if you're going for a junior position or a more lead one. But for a junior one, I would say that technical skills are a little bit um, less important in that like you can usually easily be trained in them, but it is always nice to see like some sort of a specialization. I say this about community management where you often will have like different flavors of community managers. So some are really good at video editing, some are amazing at image editing and like memes and stuff. Some are amazing at analytics, and it all kind of depends on how you write out your resume and how you kind of apply. And whatever I'm looking for, like I kind of will peep that on people's resumes and base some of my hiring decision on that. So I can go super into this, but I will let Sydney also speak on it.
No, that's really, really cool. I was like pulling out points. I was like, yeah, that's actually exactly what we do too. Like a lot of what you're saying makes complete and total sense. For us in particular, we had hired for a community manager intern. So what you're saying about like community management responsibilities and levels and tasks is so important too, because a community manager at one studio is not going to be doing the same tasks as a community manager at another studio. That's what I found, at least talking to the community managers that I know, and also just from job postings. Like you said, some can be very data driven, some can be more focused on video editing or like graphic design. There's also a branch of kind of community management that falls into content creation, which can also become its own job. So it's worth to take a look at the posting and kind of like the tasks and skills that are there, and then see how you can relate not only your hard skills, but also soft skills to that as well. For us, for example, when we were looking for a community manager intern, we really appreciated seeing that the person that we hired did have experience in moderating and managing Discords. You know, she had her own server, and for that, we needed to know that she understood how to manage mods, for example, how to defuse situations that could happen on Discord, and she really showed us that she had experience in those kind of situations and what's the word? Yeah, diffusing those types of situations when things got tough. Community management, don't worry, it's not super scary, not super tough, but there is, we're looking for the ability for you to be able to talk with people, to communicate clearly with others, and that's what that showed us, her having experience in that Discord, for example. Besides that, it does depend on what CM duties you need. So another thing we looked for was experience in like the Adobe suite. So we were looking for experience, in Photoshop, some kind of video editing, so like After Effects or Premiere, in order to, support the community with some assets, and so that I could also assign some assets to her. Um, so yeah, that was also useful for us in terms of hard skills. But yeah, I think to say like it does vary job to job in terms of CM, and as well in terms of like experience level too.
So my experience in community management was in AAA, and I think a lot of the stuff that you guys are covering were actually completely separate jobs where I was working. So I think what falls in within like the community management space is that you have like the community managers, which are people who are tasked to talk to people. but we also had essentially people who were social media marketers. So they were the ones that were more kind of there to make sure that we were looking at the numbers and that we were doing A/B testings and also doing things like buying that are connected to also buying ads. And then there was also like the content creation arm of it as well, which uh, writing copy, creating content, creating images and videos. So yeah, it's like everything else in indie, everybody wears a lot of hats, and consequently, it's kind of difficult to kind of define where communities community management starts and community management ends.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that if that's okay
Oh, go
to speak. Okay.
yeah, go
Yeah.
right ahead. It's
Yeah.
it's this
Okay.
is not like completely structured where one person talks and then nobody else can say anything. So
Okay, perfect.
please, if you have thoughts, please expand.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely have thoughts because I had like a very similar experience when I joined Norsefell. You know, it was a super small indie studio, and I think like I was the 12th, 11th or 12th hire. We were pretty small, and I was wearing all of those hats along with my fellow community manager. We were doing everything, and like you're saying, it is as you get bigger and bigger, it is a separate job. There's like influencer manager, there's content creator, there can be social media manager, there can be community manager. They're all broken down jobs as you get bigger and bigger. And we were lucky to be able to recently, in the past year, hire a content creator. So somebody who is dedicated to creating content. And it's helped so much in terms of what we could do on community because now I can focus on community itself and not so much the posting or to be able to, create graphics and all of that. I can think of ideas that would benefit the community and then bring that to her and then she executes it beautifully. So it's just this combination that works really well. And I think it can be a bit difficult at first to expect someone to do all of those things all at once. Maybe when you're small, but eventually, it should get to a point where your main focus can be on the community itself, and then hopefully you'll get help to help you with managing all of that. But yeah, it's been great to have a content creator.
Victoria, were you like the sole marketing person at KidFox?
Yeah. That was a time. Yeah, so similar to what you all were saying, like being indie kind of means you have to wear a lot of different hats. And at Kitfox, I did a lot of the PR. I did all the PR, the marketing, social, and all that. And like I did have, luckily, like the team to help out. So like if I needed an asset, our artist could help me draw something because I can't draw. And then also like our captain Tanya, she was there for support and everything. But it is a lot of kind of picking up things that need to get done, researching and learning on the job a lot of the time. I think, especially with indies, and now I think it's a little bit better because there are more resources out there. But at the time, it was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, looking out, I don't know, watching what you were doing on Boyfriend Dungeon, I was just like, wow, I was just blown away about just,
Well, thank you.
by your work. I'm like, does this person ever sleep? Between your social media posts and then like TikTok videos and then just overall marketing, I was like, oh my God, that
Well,
just seems
thank
like so
you.
much work.
It was very fun. I felt very grateful that I was able to do that.
Okay, let's move along to our next question, which is so I think Victoria, you mentioned this a little bit, but how do you get experience before your first job? So obviously people, like we want to hire people that can do the job, but how do you demonstrate that you can do the job before you have that first job?
I think
Victoria, you want to? Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. I think one of the really nice things about community management is that technically it has a lower barrier to entry. And there are a lot of different ways that you can gain experience in community management and also test out honestly if you like it or not, just by doing the thing. So I think I said before, like, you could moderate a Discord. That is totally a thing that people do. You could help with a Reddit forum. That is good experience in getting moderation. And also I would encourage just like posting on social media and trying out the different social media platforms. I don't think you need to try to become like an influencer in any of these platforms, but I think being able to work with them and kind of understand like what is attractive about each specific platform, right? The ways you kind of edit and work on TikTok are going to be very different from how you work with Twitter. Even checking out the analytics on the back end and kind of testing out personally for you what makes sense and what works. I think that is a really great way to kind of get experience. And also, honestly, like I think it's one of those things where community and communication is obviously such a thing that a lot of people have to do in any sort of job. So even in your own job, that could be a thing that makes sense for you in terms of like when you're writing out a resume or when you're applying for jobs. Like, oh, like if you, even if you're a content creator, like if you're a streamer, like that has a lot of applicable things when it comes to community management. Um, but yeah, honestly, a lot of it is just doing the thing. And there's also a lot of free courses out there. So HubSpot, for example, has a digital marketing course that's free. I took that like way back in 2016, 2017, I think. And I found it very helpful into understanding even just like what kind of the marketing language is when people say things like this. Maybe it was an inbound marketing course. Maybe it was both. Google also does a digital marketing course. Um, so yeah, I would say kind of just research what's out there, try a few different courses, and that is a really great way to get experience without having to formally go to school for it.
Okay. Sydney.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience, and I can totally vouch with what you're saying about just doing the thing, because that's partly how I ended up getting the job in CM. I had, way back when Instagram started, like 6 or 7 years ago now, or maybe a bit more than that. It's old at this point. But I had gone on Instagram like very, very early when it first started, and I started building up a community, like a personal community of my own. Keep in mind, I had no idea I wanted to do community management. It's just like retrospective me was, I guess, thinking of future me. So I started building this community of my own, and I was posting and gaining followers, and it was really big about photography back in the day. So I used to post a lot of photography. But in that way, I kind of started creating my very own community. I was doing things like UGC, so user generated content. If people would post fan art, I would repost it. And a lot of the things I'm realizing I did in the past, I am doing now, even like running contests and all of that. So I kind of gathered that experience from growing my own Instagram audience, and I had talked about that in my like cover letter when I applied to Northfell, and that really really helped. So just doing the thing, showing that I wanted to have experience in this and like I enjoyed it and I was passionate about it, that really really helped. So personal projects, I had also worked on some personal projects involving games. So I had like made some small games and done some 3D, which also benefited me just to kind of understand the games pipeline a little bit more, even if it wasn't what I was going to do. Um, I did have some formal education in school as well, which helped, but it was a very, very broad program. I went to the School of Interactive Arts and Technology at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver. I learned a little bit about UX and UI, which I had also spoken about when I was applying to Northspell, because having that helped as well, just understanding user experience, user journeys, how people, react to the things that they are engaging with. That helps a lot with what I do today in terms of taking like player feedback and understanding what are the pain points in players. So in a way, school did help, but what I went to school for was nothing related to CM in the end. It was just like those skills from the classes that I had taken benefited me. So it was a combination of both. For me, it was a little bit of school, it was a little bit of personal projects, and then just this intense like motivation. Once I saw what CMing was, I knew it was for me, and it kind of connected to everything I had been doing in the past. So yeah, that's how it happened for me.
You both mentioned schools, but are there any programs that are specifically towards community management on a university level? Is that a thing?
Honestly, not that I'm aware of, like specifically, let's say community management in games. But I mean, there's the marketing degrees and all that. I say that like I hate marketing degrees. I don't. They're great. But I would say like usually people would think
Yeah,
of
okay.
like a marketing degree.
Like broader, yeah, communications or marketing degree.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I've never heard of any type of like community management school or anything, but every community manager I've spoken to like has had a different path in school, at least in my experience.
Yeah, it's
I
kind of
I
cool.
think, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. We're blowing through these questions. I think I only prepared 3 questions, so I'm somewhat concerned. But
Maybe we can fill up space too.
Yeah, no
I,
problem.
I'm not concerned. I'm both of you can fill space. I'm very confident. But let's see. So the last question that I had prepared was, how do you avoid the job post that is the social media intern, uh, parentheses, actually marketing director, PR, influencer manager altogether? Or do you want to avoid it? Maybe you don't want to avoid it. Maybe you do want to do that. What are your thoughts? Sydney, do you want to start?
Yeah, go Sydney.
Okay, hello. For like how to avoid um the job in general, like
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is like some indie companies will have a job post where they say like, hey, we're looking for a social media intern. And then you look at the job description and they basically want someone who is essentially the person that will be in charge of all the communication that that company does, including PR, influencer management, marketing, and social media.
yeah, if I came across that, and I feel like I have seen examples of that before, I would either if it was something I was interested in, of course, like reach out to them and either maybe talk to them about the title not matching the responsibilities in the most tactful way possible, or if there's a chance to, have a different title for it, because it is kind of a weird spot if the title doesn't match the job description, especially if you're going to be taking on so much responsibility. So maybe the chance for that, that's all. That's what I'm thinking. If I see that, I'm a little like red flags are popping up. But it can also depend, like I mentioned, on the size of the studio too. When I started at Northfell, it was kind of a we wear all the hats, but the workload wasn't as intense as you would expect at somewhere that was bigger. So it was manageable at the time. But as we grew, that's when we needed to start breaking off into those individual jobs.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Victoria?
All right. So I'm gonna warn everyone now. I have like the biggest rant about this.
Please,
So
please rant away.
one one thing I will say is that from remembering my time like graduating and wanting a job in games, I and where I am now, I know that it is really difficult to pass up a job opportunity in games in community management when you really want it. Like I was especially also financially, because when I graduated, I was desperate. I did take on a terrible job and it wasn't great, but I understand the mindset in which someone might go about this. Um, so so that is my preface of like, I get it. It is really difficult. And sometimes you're like, I just really want that foot in the door. I can just do it for a few months and I'll leave and it'll be fine. Um, and I'm not here to tell you what to do. You can clearly, like, obviously, you do your own life. But on upon reflection, I will say, like, as much as it will give you experience, and maybe it does, can feel like, oh, like, when will another opportunity like this come again, where it's like, I don't know, entry level or something like that. Um, it can be really, really difficult to emotionally be like, I'm not going to take this. Well, logically, you could be like, this doesn't make sense to me. And also, maybe you just don't have that experience of looking through jobs. Because again, when I had just graduated, I was like, I just need a job. And I wasn't used to looking at like tons and tons of job apps to know, oh, this isn't really what a community manager job should be doing. Oh, this is really little pay for what they want me to do. So I'm just going to say that. And in terms of like watching out for those kinds of things and kind of how you can mitigate that, I will say one of the things is that a really bad community management job, actually a really bad games job can burn you out of the games industry entirely. It can make you lose like a lot of hope in the industry. It can scar you. It can introduce you to some terrible people. And it's one of those things where I really caution you, because like short term, it's really enticing. Long term, I think there's a lot of consequences and trauma that you might have to work through, and that's going to be really expensive. So maybe think about that. Another thing that I would say is that luckily, like people are talking about it more. There's obviously a wonderful Discord community here. And I would suggest like kind of checking different resources. Like if you read a job application, you're like, is that a lot of work? It's like influencers, PR, marketing, whatever. Like if that kind of feels like a lot, I would say there's probably places in which you could ask people. You could DM a community manager that you kind of already know, or honestly, it doesn't really matter. A lot of community managers are really willing to help out each other. Like I have asked different community managers that I didn't even know. I just DM them on Twitter really politely, respectfully, and like I'll be like, hey, can I just like ask your advice on something? If you want to like politely send it to people that you know, or friends in the industry, that sort of thing, to be like, I saw this job app, it looks really cool. Can you just gut check this for me? And it can be really quick. Then I suggest that might be a great way to do it. Asking other people is always good. There are different resources out there, again, like I said. So one, comparing it, kind of, you can usually find different community manager jobs and see what all of them list. Get really familiar with that. There are also, I know I think it was, I forgot who did it, but there was an anonymous game salary Excel sheet somewhere
Yeah,
for like
it's like
2021.
hashtag game dev paid me, I think.
Yeah, hashtag game dev paid me. You can always check those out. And again, with indies, it can be a little bit,
And also regionally, I feel like it's kind of
yeah,
all over the
regionally
place.
too. For sure, for sure. So like, keep an eye on those things. And when you're looking at job ads, keep in mind like where they're based, sort of thing. Like European jobs will pay less, but that's because they have like really good health insurance and stuff like that. Um, so just keep that in mind. But that was a lot of talking to say, one, ask other people. That's great. Use your resources. Use this Discord. I think maybe actually don't listen to me. Maybe ask the people if that's okay first. And then make sure you check out the salaries. Make sure you look at what other job postings say. And three, you will have many opportunities to work in your life. So don't burn out all at once. That's my rant. Thank you.
I think that you have very good points. And yes, don't take on jobs that will have long-term emotional consequences, because yeah, it takes a long time to recover from burnout. I think it really depends on the individual, but I've read articles saying that it can take up to 8 years to recover from burnout, and I believe it. So yeah. Um, since we don't have any more canned question, I do want to ask one question, since we have you here. Victoria, you are kind of like the queen of the shit posting slash like meme posts. Like, how did you get there? Like, is it something you just innately do, or is it a practice skill?
Well, thank you. What a fantastic compliment. I think there are many people out there who are very good at shit posting, much better than me. I think um, that's something that I was both lucky and made sure that look continued. So when I was working at Kitfox, I was very lucky to have Tanya, who just trusted me and trusted kind of the ways in which I wanted to work social and community and stuff like that. Um, and I honestly, I didn't start off like that. I eased into it. I just started testing the boundaries like a little bit more and more. But I think honestly, the biggest way in which I talk about shit posting is that I really try to justify it and prove it in a way that will make sense to someone who is looking at the back end. So I get that, like, everyone laughs about shit posts and it's really fun, and I agree. And there is a method to it, I think, though, that you need to follow, especially when you're talking to higher ups or upper management who might be like, okay, I get it, like it's fun, but what is it really doing? And being able to one track like the engagement, the kinds of responses, the kind of people who join your community based on your shit post, because I could shit post um really, I could shit post just horrible stuff, like absolutely terrible stuff, and get engagement, and that would count for technically something in the numbers back end. But also looking at like who you attract, the kinds of people who are responding to you and being a part of your community, and talking to the community itself and making sure that everything is good, because I do think a lot of the time people can get really caught up in shit posting, and that's sometimes when you end up with someone shit posting about like a really traumatic thing that is currently happening in the world, and that doesn't work out very well. So yeah, so part of like why I write all of the stuff that I did was that I wanted to like justify to the team and with myself and with other people, like, here is what I'm doing, here is why, here are the numbers behind it, and here is why I think it is contributing to a better like studio, a better brand, and like better like players and all that sort of thing. So yeah, all that to say, make sure that you know how to communicate with the kinds of people that you will be working with.
Well, that was an excellent answer. Thank you very much. um, Sydney, do you get
So
the ship post for Norsefell, or I feel like Norsefell's a little more, I don't know, serious.
We're a little, I would say, like a little more serious. I am given freedom, which is amazing. I'm given a lot of trust as well. Being, that I'm the person posting on socials. I do push a little here and there. Like sometimes I'll do a little thing that I'll be like, is this too much? But it's never too much. We're still pretty tame in terms of ship posting. But just in terms of the replies I give to players and everything, like I have total freedom just to be myself in those replies, which I really, really appreciate because there's nothing more fun. Like, of course, you want to keep the brand voice and everything that you're doing, but there's nothing more fun just being yourself on socials and being able to reply to players in the way that you would normally talk as a human. I think that's really important when it comes to us and how we talk to players. Is just you have that one-on-one conversation. You sometimes know it's me behind the scenes replying to you, and I've got you. And so yeah, we're lighter on the ship posting, I would say, but I'm like totally down to do that whenever it comes to mind. Um, but yeah, we like to have fun and like play with players. I'd say we do more in our Discord is where we're like the most relaxed and pretty much anything goes in terms of people making memes and everything. But yeah, maybe more in the future. I'll try to up my game.
No, let me just say though, Sydney does like amazing work with Northfell. I have been following that work since, I don't actually know when, 2018, 2017. Sydney does amazing stuff.
yeah, Sydney is really amazing.
Stop, I'm blushing. Thank you both. Ah.
So, Masao, I grabbed a few questions from the community. I think we can
Okay,
start answering that.
let's
So,
do that because I've run out of ideas.
so I'm sorry in advance for we won't be able to answer all your questions, but I just grabbed a few. I think will make an interesting conversation. So, for the first question is, what experience would you value the most between all the skills or experiences that you gained as a community manager, or looking at fellow community managers' work? I'll go with
Sorry, can you repeat
Victoria first.
that?
Let's go.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Oh, yeah, sorry. What experience would you value the most between all of the skills or experiences that you gain as a community manager? So, like the experience you gained over time, like what is your favorite one yet? I think is what the question is.
Oh man, that's hard. Like an actual. Oh, there's so many. Sydney, do you want to go first?
I was literally gonna say the same thing. I was gonna say that's such a big question, but like there's so much I could say about
Yeah,
it. I have like a couple that maybe come to mind first.
me too. I have one I could. Okay, you go first, Sydney. It's fine.
Okay. Okay. Let me like focus on like the most important ones. I think, oh my gosh. Well, if it's like what I'm thinking of first, I think in terms of experience, like I think for me, it was working on a live game, like from start to finish, which is something that I feel so lucky to have done because I joined Norsephell when Tribes of Midgard was just a little alpha game. The week after I joined, they held a closed alpha for the game, so I really got thrown into it like right away. They were like, "You're joining us, CM. Time to, run the closed alpha." We had a really small Discord community. We had like 200, 300 people at the time. And then just being able to see that game develop and come to life and being able to be such like an instrumental part of that for the community was the best experience ever. Just, we had the three closed alphas, then I got to do three open betas for the community. So I really got to get practice in like writing feedback surveys. How are we going to run open betas? How are we going to give out keys? How are we going to, harness all this feedback from the community to make the game the best it can be when it finally launches? And then taking all that feedback, bringing that to the team, seeing what's actionable, and then finally when the game launched, like it was in July 27th 2021 was the launch, being there to launch the game for the very first time, and just take care of all the the post release. How do we communicate to players? How do we keep the hype going? Okay, how are we going to have a roadmap for all the updates that are to come for lives Tribes of Midgard, because it is live ops, meaning that we do updates every couple of months. So that was super, super exciting just to be able to, get to see the whole life cycle of Tribes of Midgard, which is still going. Um, it was just a whirlwind. We also, throughout that, got a publisher as well. So we signed with Gearbox Publishing, which was huge for us who were very, very small at the time, to have their support and everything, and to be able to, go see them and, make that happen and everything. It was just so magical. So that's like it's kind of the overarching experience that I had was just, you know, back when Northspell was small, just we both kind of took a chance on each other and it really, really worked out. And I'm very grateful that that happened. But it's kind of like a little baby. You get to see this little thing, it's so, so small, and then you get to see it grow and kind of take on a life of its own, which is kind of what's happened. And just to see the community grow as well is like so heartwarming to me. And to kind of sum it up, I could keep going, but to sum it up, just making the genuine connections I have, I think, is another really impactful experience for me. With like the mods, for example, our mods who work on the game, who are incredible, amazing. I feel like they have learned so much as well in terms of just management and managing our community, and then having them there to support and help me with what I do. I couldn't do it without them. And then just to make these connections with the players of our game who have become like the biggest advocates of the game, and they're there giving feedback, they're there, they know the team, they're interacting with us, and to have them show such passion for the game, and then me being able to bring that to our devs and just be like, hey, there's these people that love our game. It's such a rewarding feeling for me personally. So that's in terms of maybe soft experience, which has been great. That's one singular thing. Feel free to go, Victor.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Sydney said. I think if I had to boil it down to one thing that could kind of encompass a lot of the best thing that I've learned while on the job, that could, because I'm trying to make sure that hopefully it could be, you can replicate it or do it yourself even if you aren't in a community manager job at the time. I will say writing, like learning how to write for me has been a godsend for everything that I do in community. So you, whether it's writing like TikTok scripts, Twitter posts, and fitting Twitter posts in, well, if it still stays at 280 characters, let's say, Discord, and knowing how to handle like uh, how to de-escalate a conflict in writing on Discord is a huge thing. Being able to read a brand's tone or a game's tone and adapt your own to fit it, while also letting your voice come out in that too, and writing like, I've had to do like random things like writing grant proposals like that, or not grant proposals, sorry, funding proposals, that sort of thing. Just being able to write for whatever audience it is that you will be interacting with, which whatever situation, that is super valuable to me. And if you need like places to start, there are so many resources about writing, obviously, right? Because people do it, it's jobs, that sort of thing. Copywriting is a huge thing. There's a book called On Writing Well, that is something that I've heard is very good, and I'm still kind of in the process of reading it. There's another one called Everybody Writes. Yeah, just learning how to read tone and adapt writing styles for me was the biggest thing.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Can I
masterful.
can I can I share my most important
Yes,
experience
go
for
ahead.
community management? So my experience is quite old. It's when I started in community management in 2010. So community management in a like from a like obviously community management is something that that's been happening for a long time, but like community management in the game space as kind of this extension of like marketing and the way that we interact with our players was still pretty new, and we were still trying to figure things out. And that was a really interesting time. So, for example, we Facebook didn't have pages yet. So Assassin's Creed was a profile, like it was like a person. So we had like a hard cap of only being able to add like 1,000 people. Um, Twitter, people were like, "What is Twitter? Is it a thing?" And kind of being there, and from there, Facebook reached out to us, and we were the first video game page to launch on Facebook, and kind of see that like that community kind of explode. And back then, people were like way nicer. I feel like it was a different time in the video game community space. It was before Gamergate had happened. Um, and that was really an interesting experience for me. Like I'd been working in video games since 2006, so I was already kind of, pretty well into my career. But I never really had that kind of like direct interaction with the players. And having that and kind of seeing how the community grew really gave me appreciation of how much people loved our games and how much people love the community. And I think that has really shaped me. Now that my primary job now is as a producer and studio manager, but that experience really shaped my perception of how you approach players and how you make games, um, profoundly. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Beautiful, masterful. Okay, let's move on to the next question. What would you say are some things that might be red or yellow flags to be on alert for on a job description that might make for a bad experience? Sydney, you go first.
Ooh, okay. I maybe have some terminology that I consider a red flag, and I don't know if you will agree, but if I see words like kind of how we were talking about, like somebody who wears all hats, potentially the words like wizard or rock star or something along those lines can be a bit of a yellow
Terrible.
flag. Okay, okay.
Never,
You agree?
never,
Okay,
yeah, never take a job where they're saying they're
okay,
looking for a wizard or a rock star. I
okay.
100% agree.
Okay, perf. It just means they will ask too much of you, and you don't want that to happen. So that's something I would look out for. As mentioned earlier, if there is some kind of salary range, you might want to check that out and see if that checks out. See if it's something that's fair. Like you had mentioned, it's a little difficult, I would say, to cross-reference salaries, but people will generally be willing to talk about it if you ask. And also, as we mentioned, game dev paid me hashtag is a good hashtag to check out on Twitter. So I might want to keep an eye on that too. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Feel free to jump in, Victoria, if you have any that come to mind.
I feel like a lot of people have been a bit smarter about writing Rockstar in order to make sure they're not, flagging anything. So I will say now that a lot of what I'm seeing is like people will now use like Gen Z slang as a way to, like, instead of saying Rockstar, they'll be like, we need the community manager who can. I don't even know. Oh my god,
Yeah,
I'm
I've
losing
seen,
all my Gen Z
yeah, I've
slang
seen people be too casual, I would say sometimes on some applications, and it makes me not worry about not legitimacy, but I'm like, can I take them seriously if I see them using too much slang like you're talking about?
Like
now. Hmm.
like cringy slang or
No, just I mean,
like TikToky sounding
cringe
things or
is
like what are we talking
merely
about here?
cringe is a state of mind. um, but yeah, someone who literally just like all like the entire post is just like very meme shit posty. Like I get that if they're looking for someone who knows how to shit post, like they might want to like have some more casualness to it. But I will say like one of the things is like in because it is still a professional environment, I would still look for some of that structure because you do want some of that structure when it comes to career growth and like making sure people aren't taking advantage of you and all that sort of thing. Um,
Uh,
yeah,
that they
I think what
actually pay their invoices on time.
yeah, exactly, and that they pay because look, I'm just saying, not everyone does. Um, so as much as it can be like cool to be like, oh, like this indie studio is so like chill and hip and whatever. I don't know. Making sure that they're also taking your job seriously.
Yeah, that's pretty much also like I'm thinking of like, job posts that we have. Shelby, have you ever come across like a post like within work with indies that like have raised flags for you?
Wow, you're really putting me on the spot. Honestly, I there's not any that I can think of off the top of my head, but I will say, and this is for me personally, and you're free to agree or disagree, but I would say a big yellow flag for me is that when I was previously looking for community manager roles is when I looked at a job description and someone was directly asking for someone to um, do influencer marketing essentially, but have it be under community management, or they specifically wanted you to have like a already established community, like an established personal community. Um, because I am a firm believer that you do not need to have like your own established personal community or your own personal brand on social media to be a good social media or community manager. So for me, if I came across something that's like, oh, if you like, you have built up your own personal brand, I just think that that's some people would probably disagree and say, oh, well, if you can build up your own brand, then yes, you are good at that job and that can prove that you know how to do that. But I don't think that's necessarily a end all be all to someone because I personally am not super active on my own personal social media and I like to think that I do a pretty darn good job.
Yo, that is a great point. I don't care what anyone says. You do not need to build your own personal brand to be a good community manager, and that pisses me off.
Word.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Word.
yeah. Totally. I completely agree. Like it's not about you, at the end of the day. Like if you take a CM job for a brand, a video game, like whatever company, like you are the voice of that brand. Like do not like depend on your own voice to like create the brand. You'll have a rough time.
And I might also advise, like, with what you're saying, it can also be a lot to, manage a personal brand as well as like if you are the community manager and social media manager for your job. It kind of goes back to what we're saying. You don't want to push yourself too hard. You don't want to get to that point of burnout if you are, putting your all into this brand every day on socials. And then at the end of the day, if you have to go and put all that same energy into your own brand, it can be very exhausting. So you have to be very conscious of how you manage your time in that way too. And I found that in community management, like boundaries and having offline time is very, very, very important as well.
I I don't know what you're talking about. What is offline time? Does time actually exist offline?
Um, it should. It should.
Stop, Masao.
I'm kidding. I'm
Please.
kidding.
No, you
Um,
concern me.
Chronically online.
Actually, I totally agree, and I've actually seen some pretty like negative examples of people who have like quote unquote strong personal brands, kind of not working out very well as community managers. So
Yeah. I would say, and this is as someone who I understand, I have a following, don't trust, or don't automatically trust anyone with a following. Just gonna say that. They're very good at marketing themselves. That doesn't mean they're
Yeah, I will vouch for that as well. Um, so
all
we'll
I have
move.
to say is psychopaths are really good at marketing themselves. So
Oh my god.
that's all I'm gonna say about that.
What a turn. What a turn this panel is. Okay, so we have 10 minutes left. So let me see what kind of questions we can answer. Um, so from Twitch, Shelby let us know about 2 questions. Does an applicant's shitposting hurt their chances when applying? No, I think we answered that. I think we answered that. I don't think we need to get into that yet. Do they think that it's important to really love the project? Oh, yeah. So, do you think it's important to love the project that you're applying for? Or is it worthwhile just to get your foot in the door somewhere sometimes? So, getting your first job or maybe like moving to a new environment, what do you think like matters the most?
Can I make a comment about the ship posting? So, like, yes, for the most part, ship posting will not prevent you from getting a job, but remember, people will read what you've posted. So, um, like, for example, I had to decline a candidate that was a game designer, not, and it wasn't because they were ship posting, it's just that they were kind of borderline fascist. So, remember that people know how to Google. So, yeah.
yeah.
And second,
So
oh,
the lesson is don't be borderline fascist.
but yeah, it's
Say
true. That's actually the lesson there.
that. Yeah. Uh yeah, sorry. So wait, sorry, were you done with that? I don't want to interrupt.
Oh, I was also going to say that you don't have to love the game that you work on. I didn't love the games that I worked on for many years, and I had a perfectly fine career.
Yeah. Um yeah. So for that question, I think you should love something. You should love something about your job. Whether that is like community management, whether that is the game, or whether that is the studio. Personally, I would say I hope you love like not the studio necessarily, but the people that you work with, and upper management and stuff. And liking them is a little bit more, actually, arguably, in my humble opinion, more important than liking the game itself. Just because you want to like the team, you want to make sure that you're being taken care of, that sort of thing. But even speaking from personal experience, there have been games that Kitfox has done that I haven't been personally like huge fans of, just because it's not my genre, it's just not my kind of game, that sort of thing. When I was being hired for Among Us, the first thing I told the co-founders was, I'm going to be real with you. I can't play Among Us. It makes me really nervous. I cry. I can't be the imposter, that sort of thing. And that's okay. Maybe don't start off straight up with that. It's because I knew them. But I would say like the thing is like what is really important, what usually for me drives my passion when it comes to community management in a game, is really liking the people, because you believe in their vision for the game, you believe in the way they run your studio, and you want to see it succeed, and you want to see it succeed for them. And that's kind of part of what community management does. Um, and when it comes to the game itself, like you do need to know the game. Like this isn't to say that you have to love it, but you should know obviously how it works. Maybe the language that they use, the kind of players that play it, the different quirks between the games. But you don't need to be like the biggest fan or know all of the lore specifically in it before you start. And you can honestly grow to love the game, or you can never love the game. It's okay. But yeah, I wouldn't say that that is the most important thing. And honestly, a lot of people have been burned chasing like their I don't know, their dream game or their dream studio, but not really paying attention to anything else surrounding it, like the pay, the way people treat them, uh, and all that kind of thing. So yeah, that's my advice.
Cindy?
Yeah, honestly, I don't have too much more to add because everything you said, like, pretty much covers it. I agree that especially if you're looking for, maybe your first job, you're not gonna love the game that you're working on. It might be a happy accident. Maybe the game ends up being awesome and you end up really, really enjoying it. But like you said, like the most important part is that you have people on your team that you can trust and who are there to support you, and that's, that can be more of a reason to, stay with the studio you're with, even if you don't love the game you work on. But that's what's really important, is just the people IRL who are there supporting you. You have a good time, you have a good time with your coworkers, and like you said, management knows what they're doing, is a huge part of it as well. I can only speak so far, because this is like the first games job, but even with past like job experiences, you always want to have somebody who's looking out for you. So you can learn to love the game. You do, as community manager, at least in my experience, I do spend a lot of time in the game, knowing the game in and out, just because, I want to know it so intensely, because our community will ask the most specific niche questions. I love it. But they'll be like, for example, hey, maybe there's like the spear isn't poking as much as it used to poke, and it's good for me to know that kind of detail and then be able to like communicate that to the devs and then come back with an answer for them. So knowing the game is really important. I spend a lot of time in it. It is kind of my genre, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be my genre for me to be a community manager for it.
This might be a hot take, but I'm gonna throw this out there. I think it might be better if you don't love the game, the first game you work on, because your your first job in the games industry is already kind of an emotionally intense experience. For people, I mean, assuming most of these people who are applying are like longtime game fans. So I think if you don't love the game you're working on, you're probably going to be able to have like a more kind of healthy uh, relationship to your job
Yeah,
because it's not going to be so personal.
that's actually so true. Like imagine if you were working on your dream game as like your first or second job. Like the amount of, I feel like there would be an amount of pressure there, not only on yourself to like do well, but yeah, I feel like that would be a bit intimidating. It's kind of nice, especially if it's your first job, to kind of get a starter game. So I mean, I see what you're saying. I don't know if it's a little bit of a hot take, maybe.
Okay. So with only 3 minutes left, I think, yeah, Shelby, thank you for the friendly reminder that, like, the conversation is getting a little off topic. So please be nice, everyone. Thank you. So let's conclude, Masao. Any last words you would like to give our community before you take your beautiful leave?
Um, I want to say this about any job that you're trying to get into the games industry. Uh, it is incredibly competitive and it's very difficult. So be kind to yourself. If you've applied to like 20 jobs and none of them have gotten back to you, it's probably not your fault. So don't beat yourself up too much. Try to, try to take one day at a time and know that, it is difficult to get that first foot in the door.
I'm going to jump in because I have a very hard stop in 1 minute. And yeah, exactly what you said about like don't be hard on yourself. It is a difficult thing to get into, and entry level jobs are really difficult. But I will say that I think one of the best things that I've kind of been able to do is just to really experiment now and try now. Like if you want to like learn how to create content, do it all as early as possible before anyone is watching you and has eyes on you, because I think this is like the time to really experiment and have fun with it and learn and kind of see like what paths in community management you really want to lean into, whether that's video editing, writing, moderation, something else, because that is something that will be really useful to you in the future. Because if once you start failing in front of an audience, and you will still fail within a career because I've done that many times. it will be much easier when you know you've already been through it.
Beautiful. Victoria, if you really need to go, you can go. Thank you
Thank
so
you. I have an
much.
interview to go to. So bye everyone. Thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you so much.
I will be around. Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. We will be sharing her socials shortly after. Sydney, any last words of advice?
Sure. To add to everything that was just said, don't give up. Like if it's something that you are really passionate about and something you really want to get into, it will be tough. It was tough for me as well. I had applied to many jobs. I had a spreadsheet to track all of the places I applied to, if I heard back from them, if I got an interview, et cetera, et cetera. But through all of the no's, there will be that one yes eventually. And if you're finding you're not getting that yes, absolutely reach out to the people around you. This is an amazing Discord too. It just seems like a lovely, wholesome place to talk to others. And um, like Victoria had mentioned as well, you can always ask other CMs if you can reach out to them, if you can talk to them about anything. I wanted to add as well, like if you ever have any questions, I saw there was so many amazing questions today. If there's anything, you are welcome to reach out to me as well. I would be happy to talk and answer any questions as well. But don't give up. That's the bottom line.
Don't give up. Never, never
Yeah.
give up. So, yeah, let's wrap this up, Masao. So, thank you everyone who attended this roundtable. We do these around every month. If you would like to us to do a discipline in particular, please leave a comment in event chat, and we'll see what we can do. And once again, thank you, Sydney. Thank you, Masao. And we can gracefully leave the stage now.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.